Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today, we're diving back into the world of high school esports. Joining us is ROBBY Hernandez. He is the esports coach at Thomas Jefferson High School in San Antonio, Texas. So without further ado, ROBBY, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where your passions in gaming kind of started, and kind of how that led you down your path to your current position as the esports coach at Thomas Jefferson.
Well, my passion of gaming really started early in my life. My father was in the military. I remember he was coming back from a deployment in Kuwait, I believe, Kuwait or Korea. And he comes out to play and he's got a Nintendo 64 in his hand. And like, I was more excited to see that than to see my dad. And it was just like gaming from like from that point forward. Of course, like I played sports, like traditional sports in high school. There wasn't like an esports scene, but in college, I was on my school's StarCraft 2 team, and that was really exciting. That was my first taste, like in professional esports, of just like I started to know who like the StarCraft 2 players were, and then very quickly after that, I got into League of Legends, and like that was like 2013, 2014, and then of course everyone knows like that just popped off.
Yeah.
And so then from there on out, when I became a teacher in 2015, it was students came to me and they're like, "You seem like a pretty cool dude. Like, do you want to be our game club director, kind of?" And I was like, "Okay." And then this past year, I was like, "You know what? It needs to go a step further. We're gonna make it official. We're gonna be esports. Like, I wanted it to reach more legitimacy than just like a random club that five guys show up to."
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the platform of esports yields for so much, right? I think a lot of students that are involved in gaming and esports, they haven't quite found where those passions are, so to say, right? They don't really play football or they don't participate in band, but like they love gaming, right? They love esports, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So like the ability to have the program like yours to give them those opportunities to be with people that are like them of their own age at school and be, talking and communicating about something they're passionate about is absolutely awesome. But my next question really is, tell me a little bit more about the esports program there at Thomas Jefferson. Tell me, what games you compete in, what do those teams look like, and just kind of give me that snapshot of what, you do as a program / club.
So we're pretty new. It was a long process in my district last school year. We really started out kind of in September, and I had an information meeting, and over 50 students showed up to that information meeting, and they were just all over the place with the types of games they played. And then districts started to get more wind of it. And I'm in a pretty large urban district, and there's a lot of control from our district offices. And there was a little bit of pushback. They wanted to make sure like that, we had a like very clear standards. And so we actually didn't get up and running into like a league until final approval came at the end of January. And that really just left us with Super Smash Brothers, Rocket League, and League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had people step up for those games. I had over $2,000 in donations last school year for things like Nintendo Switches and supplies. And that really just helped skyrocket the availability of the games for my students, because I'm in a Title I school, so not all of my students have these access to like computers and Nintendo Switches at home. And so like this is literally the only spot where they can participate. And I had about 25 consistently showing up every single day with like Super Smash Brothers, League of Legends, Rocket League. And I hadn't even heard about Rocket League. I was like, "What is this?" And they were like, "It's car soccer." And like I fell in love with that game now. So like it's amazing like how the students just bring it to me, and they come up with the ideas first, and I'm like, yeah, let's refine that and like let's just run with it. And it's just super exciting to get caught up in their excitement.
Exactly. I think that's something that's just always so incredible to see is, people like you giving or helping the students grow the platform that they want, right? Giving them that ability to compete, raising those donation dollars. And like I said, just having that platform is so important, especially at the high school age where, everyone kind of needs to find that sense of belonging. And it's so great when that can happen, especially in esports. In Rocket League, that's a game that I kind of fell into love recently as well, because it's such like a kid-friendly game, so to say. because, you don't have the violence aspects or anything that, I'm sure you experiences with some of that district pushback, just making sure it's safe. But like, it's car soccer and it's so fun and it's
Right.
so easy to pick up. It's very hard to master, but it's pretty easy to pick up and start playing and start getting better. So I love to see that. Kind of diving into the club itself a little bit more, is take us through, like, obviously it sounds like, COVID probably put a little bit of a hiccup into the being able to play in a LAN fashion in any sense. So take us through kind of like pre-COVID, what a day in the club looked like. Was there any LAN competitions or events you all hosted? Or is it more just, practicing in the cafeteria, or what did that look like exactly, to kind of give, the audience a better picture of what the program looks like when it's kind of in full functionality, before
Sure.
COVID screwed, just messed everything up.
Well, the league that we play in is through Playverse, and so our games would fall on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they actually didn't offer Super Smash Brothers. But I'm a computer science teacher at my school, so I have a computer lab. I have a large space where students can come in. And then there's another lab across the hall, which I'm looking at prime real estate to expand to. But yeah, there wasn't a special place like in the cafeteria that we would have to like set up and take down every day. But my students, as soon as our bell would ring at 4:15, like they would just be popping in, and like we had a procedure down because I keep all the materials in the closet. All I had to do is like give one of the kids a key, and
Mhm.
then they're just like taking it out, and then they put it away at the end of the practice. And so it was pretty straightforward in terms of like getting a space. I didn't really have to hunt anything down.
Right.
But outside of game days, we had things like VOD review. And what's nice about Playverse is like everything's online. And so we'd play from our lab. We'd have people cheering them on like right behind them as they're watching their screens. And League of Legends can be really hard like following along if you don't understand, because it looks like everyone's just clicking in circles. But
Mhm.
Rocket League's the one, like, see, Rocket League and Super Smash Brothers, those are the games like people get behind because they can
Yeah.
see it and understand it. They're like, oh, he just hit that ball with this car.
Yeah.
It's like you get it, or that guy just flew off the stage in Super Smash Brothers. Like you get it, you can see it.
Mhm.
And so it created a really nice following. And like we started to cheer each other on. Like it became like fans of each other, supporters of each other, and just a stronger community. And that's what we would do pretty much every day. And then for like Super Smash Brothers, we would go to like local tournaments. There's not a big esports scene in San Antonio, but myself and other schools are like, we're trying to grow it. We're trying to get more people involved in from the high schools. And that's continues to be our goal, is to the growth of esports in San Antonio.
Exactly. I think that's kind of like the mission of everybody in esports, right? It's just to see the scene grow and, us contribute any help we can. And that's awesome to see. Kind of diving into a couple of things that you mentioned there that I want to ask you about is that sense of community. I think I see it everywhere in every podcast I do at the high school or the collegiate level or even the professional scene, those communities that are developed out of having, like mind with like mind in a, particular setting, whether it's a high school or any other kind of school or business or whatnot. You see it kind of just grow and foster. So, I'd love for you to like kind of elaborate a little bit more about what that sense of community has kind of provided for your students from your experiences, kind of going off what you've seen or heard, just being able to build this community from within, and kind of what you think, in your opinion, that provides for the students.
Um, well, one thing is that it helps create like a school identity for my students, because you kind of mentioned it earlier. A lot of these kids are not in band, they're not in like ROTC, they're not in sports. And so like they're doing this stuff at home, like with just one or two friends, usually online, and like they're sitting alone. And now they're sitting with 20 like-minded individuals of like they're all trying to get better. And that same sort of competition and community that you get from these other activities such as sports or fine arts, that like that starts to invade their lives, and they start to communicate in Discord and start to become like the same stuff that you would get in any other another spot. Like they're doing it now, whereas like they didn't have that before, but that's something like that they just kind of go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, he said the kids naturally gravitate towards opportunities like this because it's something they're passionate about. And they're like, wow, this is actually happening outside of my setup in my room. Like I have the ability to go somewhere and play, in a physical setting, which I think is way more rewarding. So to say, I think, Lanzo is so much more fun in my opinion. And I love to be there, whether it's watching or playing or adminning or designing it, whatever it is. It's so much more fun when you can have everybody kind of in that one place. Kind of switching topics here to my next question is, you mentioned about some of that district pushback. And I can probably, assume or guess that it's about the violent video games and the, negative connotations that surround it, which, you look at the research, it really says quite the opposite. But, looking at like kind of what happened, you don't have to elaborate too much, but more focusing on the future, kind of like, what are your, visions to kind of keep expanding the club and, maybe bringing in some of the popular titles like Rainbow Six or Call of Duty that are still, pretty prevalent in the high school kind of age group. Do you have any plans on, expanding, bringing different games or growing the club, partly, obviously with the district's approval, to really, continuously grow this graphic or platform for everybody that wants to be involved?
Of course. Like you said, it is the shooters. And then I even got very specific pushback on League of Legends when they were like, one of these characters, Graves, is holding a cigar and shoots a gun. And like, that's very specific. But no, I do look to expand into things like Overwatch, Valorant, CSGO, into these games that my students are, they're more interested in that. They're coming from home, they're like, I'm the best. And like in my esports situation right now, they can't prove it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the big thing, is like, prove it, right? You can't just say you're the best with your group of 3 friends. And so when I initially got approval, they said no to these shooters, or no to any M-rated game. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put up that fight later. And my plan is to expand into that and to put up that fight either this year or for the following year. And the way I'm going to do it is like, we have a law enforcement course, and the law enforcement students carry around fake guns.
Yeah.
They go through scenarios where they have to like work as teams using weapons. And I'm like, that's the exact same stuff that we're doing here. It's the same stuff that you see in ROTC. Like, I've heard of some schools that have shooting ranges, either for actual weapons or like archery. Like, we're teaching kids how to use weapons. Like, it is absolutely no different than what what we're seeing here, except we're controlling it in this environment, and we're channeling it too.
Yeah. And I think, kind of going off of that, and what I've seen is, once, anybody kind of realizes the positives you gain out of like FPS, is they're extremely team oriented, right? Often 5v5 or 6v6. But they're team oriented. You have a mission, a goal as a team that you have to communicate in real time underneath the high stress. And you have to basically problem solve and use your critical thinking skills to take what your enemy is giving you, right? Because it's a real enemy in front of you, or in the game, and it's a human being controlling that enemy, and they're going to always do something different each time. So it's being able to extrapolate through all of that and then figure out the right solution and then win the round or the game. And I think once you see that kind of practice over and over again, all of a sudden, like, wow, these skills are really important for the students to have. So absolutely, I can't wait to see that expansion and continue from there. Kind of switching gears, still looking at the future a little bit, more broadly, kind of like at the entire industry, because I think you did play collegiately, correct?
Yeah, so we played in the North American Collegiate Star League.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you have a lot of unique kind of experiences to think about this, but looking specifically at high school esports for the future, what does that growth kind of look like to get high school esports from where it is now? Is a lot of, smaller clubs or smaller programs, some varsity sports with dedicated support from the high school. But what's that next step that the industry needs to take in order to achieve that mainstream success that you see football or basketball, all over the news, all these dedicated recruiting platforms to the next level? What do you think what do you think needs to change or be improved upon for high school esports to kind of continue down that trend and grow faster that way?
I'm going to say 2 things. It's going to be first, accessibility. It's or maybe like I'm going to talk about accessibility twice, but not every, like most of these, to have a competitive edge, they're not the games that we're talking about, they're not all cross platform. And so in order to compete and to showcase your skills or to have a competitive edge, you need to have a PC. Not only that, you need to have a PC with at least optimal specs, and that's going to cost you $800 at like minimum to play a lot of these games at minimum, like at average settings,
Yep.
right? And so that immediately hinders, and then you're putting into cost of peripherals. And then if you have to buy the game, like that's also another set, like, so that's another set of access that people just, that needs to get taken down.
Yep.
So like I like the way free to play games like League of Legends and how Rocket League does it. Like it gives you a taste of like what the game's about, and you can be competitive without having these other like optimizations. Whereas that's not necessarily the case for other games, or if you have to just buy the game outright,
Hmm.
then that's another barrier to access. And so as long as it requires like expensive equipment that isn't easily accessible to everybody else, that's going to be the biggest barrier
Hmm.
that is going to prevent like the boom for high school esports.
Yeah, no, I think you have a great point there, because you look at the traditional sports and there is no lack of accessibility. The schools provide the equipment or the field, but also when you go home, you can go take a run, right, or go lift weights, which is very accessible, right? You just need some weights or you just need shoes.
Right.
That doesn't really exist for esports, because you need a computer, you need a console, you need a dedicated system, right? So totally agree there. And I think you said that you were a Title I school, which is awesome. I hope to see more Title I schools kind of bring on esports, because when you look at the studies, those demographics that the underserved or the underprivileged students, they really latch on to esports as kind of like a platform for that upward mobility, so to say. So that kind of goes to my next question: is have you seen any of that, or kind of what are your thoughts on the Title I schools really buying into the esports model to give these students something that they're so passionate about as a constructive avenue for that upward mobility, so they can make it to college, maybe on an esports scholarship, or take those passions and apply them constructively at some level of collegiate coursework, so they can graduate and get a good job.
I'm not sure I quite understand. Can you clarify your question?
So a lot of Title I schools really the students latch on to esports. It's like a prevalent, that there's been a bunch of studies done where the students, those demographics where they're underserved from poor, more rural or urban areas, really latch on to esports as kind of a way to escape, right?
Hmm.
And I love to see that a number of schools have done this, where they have dedicated programs within esports to really help grow and foster the students. So I don't know, like, if you've experienced anything like that at your program, being a Title I school, as kind of an avenue to explore those passions constructively to enhance their education as they look towards college.
Okay. Um, what I would recommend for like any Title I school, if there's like a teacher or a coach who's interested in taking on this activity,
Mhm.
is that the funds are there. This falls under like STEM and Title I
Mhm.
funds. Like, and you just, I feel like maybe it's my situation specifically, and I can't speak to every school, but from what I've seen across the country, um, nobody knows how that money gets spent.
Yeah.
That's not that's not getting shared with everybody. And so like when we're look at, okay, who, like, we can have an esports program, but how are we going to get this equipment? No one's thinking Title I funds. They're thinking of using the Title I funds on pencils and erasers. Like if you keep wasting the money like that, instead of getting quality technology for your school, that's going to last more than 1 year, like that's what people need to use that money on.
Mhm.
And I feel like, again, that's another barrier, but that having that communication with administration, your school administration, your district administration, that is seriously going to help. And of course, there's so many people willing to donate to esports. Like I said, I had over $2,000 donated last year.
Yep.
And then I've got more donations coming in this school year. Like people are more than willing to throw money at this, because not only does it help students like with esports, it helps them become better with just technology in general. Even if they don't want to pursue like esports further than high school, like they become more adept with the technology. So that availability is there. And then nearly every single league that I've heard of offers opportunity for Title I schools. So like you can't just be like, we have no money for this, my students can't afford the league. Like it costs like $100 per kid per seat per semester. Like you don't have to worry about that because those companies are doing the same thing that we're doing. We're trying to expand esports and they want your schools in it. And so they're willing to work with you. You just got to let them know.
Yep, exactly. I think, taking that first step and, raising that awareness or visibility is so important. Like you said, just take that first step and let them know like, hey, I really can't afford this, but I'd love to play. Cause I think so many people are just trying to grow the industry, just like you said. And, you were talking about the technology aspect there as well. I think esports really is a great platform. And I keep saying the word, but I love it as a kind of visit or seeing it as a platform because it is a platform for all these avenues within the STEM kind of field, right? Just because you might not be the best at the game doesn't mean you're actively learning like those communications, those marketing skills, the graphic design. And then usually the PCs are very strong. Gaming machines are very, very well equipped, so to say, so they can do the coding work, right? They can do the level design, the game design, the video editing, the photography, right? So you can use it as another tool to expand your tool set, so to say, and your abilities. So absolutely there. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We've had a fantastic discussion so far, Robbie. I always leave everybody with one last question. Looking at the esports industry as a global industry, every level, everybody involved, whether it's players, coaches, businesses, marketing agencies, whatnot. What do you think is that next big step for the industry as an entire entity to really kind of catapult itself forward to start to contend on a competitive level with like the NFL or global soccer, because esports is growing so fast and it's already so big. But also like a lot of people still don't really understand what all goes into esports, right? All the event production, all the surrounding skill sets that kind of surround the space. What do you think that one thing that needs to kind of come to fruition or be improved on or be focused on to really see esports launch itself to really be, as big as soccer or football?
I think more transparency and more access. So like your esports is more than just being a professional player. It's casting, it's broadcasting, it's producing, it's the graphic design, it's the video editing, it's all of that. And people don't see that. And I think in Europe, League of Legends, the LEC, they did a great job of this a couple of years ago where they were putting out like the behind the scenes of their casters and the production team and everything that goes into it. And so making that more available, but not only that, just when you're talking about it, make it, simplify it. Like I was saying earlier, like people don't understand League of Legends. You can look at Rocket League and you can figure it out. And it's the same thing with football and basketball. Guy catches ball or runs into end zone, like ball goes to the hoop, you get points, and you can sit there and you can figure it out. And so the simpler these games are, the more mainstream I think they're going to get. I think with games like League of Legends, they'll eventually hit a cap about like people who actually want to get into it. And then yeah, just making that accessibility there for everybody is always going to be huge.
Exactly. I think, you hit it on the head there of the viewership perspective, right? Of really how do you get everybody involved in League of Legends, like even playing it, like you got to put in like 1,000, 2,000 hours to like really understand the game and like appreciate how complex it is. But, at face value, it's like there's a lot of magic and swords and I really don't know what's going on. And like, imagine that from someone that hasn't played video games or has only ever played like Mario Kart, right? They're like, yeah, this isn't fun to watch. I'm not having an enjoyable time. But games like Rocket League, I love it. It's really easy to follow, right? You can put that on a bar or any kind of sports tavern, and all of a sudden, like everyone's into it because it's very easy to kind of grasp, right?
Yeah.
Turn it on, you're like, wow, this is actually extremely hard to do what the pros are doing. So absolutely that. But we have run out of time. Robbie, thank you for sitting down with me on Spincast.
Of course, thank you.
Go ahead, if you will, real quick, go ahead, plug yourself, plug your school, plug your program. Tell us about where we can keep up to date with you on any social media or website or any platforms or avenues that I didn't mention.
Sure. So I have a YouTube channel for my classes and where I share like the lifestyle of a esports coach and just a general teacher, communication to students. That's on YouTube, Mr. Hernandez Teaches. as well as my Twitch channel. I stream either Saturday or Sunday every weekend and on holidays. That's Mr. H Teaches on Twitch. That's pretty much it. But if anybody ever wants to reach out to me or follow me on those things or ask any questions about high school esports or my life as a teacher, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the best thing about esports is that all of us love to just sit down and talk about it, right? Explore the space, answer any questions that someone may have, and you really just kind of, like you said, like we've been saying the entire time, grow the industry as much as we can in any way
Right.
we can. But once again, thank you for sitting down with me. To all our viewers and listeners, thanks for staying the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy right now, especially during the current pandemic. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and ultimately, stay plugged in.